So, Huw Lewis, what are your concerns about the changes that are being implemented now?
My concerns run very deep. The UK government's programme of welfare reform, as they call it, to my mind isn't about welfare reform at all. It's about a remaking of social security in its entirety. They're recasting the relationship between the UK government and the citizen. And just when people need protection, most of all in this economic downturn, they are stepping away from their responsibilities to the most vulnerable in our society.
You've called it a social atrocity in the past. Do you stand by that?
Absolutely, I do. I think over the coming weeks we will see, and I think there are many people out there that don't realise that although the government have talked about scroungers, they're not coming for scroungers, they're coming for ordinary Welsh people. One in five of the Welsh population relies on tax credits or benefits to some extent. These are the people that are going to feel the anxiety, really, about how to manage day to day. Will it be the heating bill, or will it be the food bill? Do we pay the rent, or do we have to juggle this by getting into debt? And I'm fearful that people are going to be pushed over the edge of affordability, and some people in fact will lose their homes as a result of things like the bedroom tax.
Coming for ordinary Welsh people, that sort of language has been called in the past the lowest form of politics, that you're offering fear rather than facts.
This is the reality of the situation. I'm not overstating what's happening here. There will be people who are just beginning to realise just the level of impact this is going to have on their family finances. There are many people I know from my own experience as a constituency representative that don't yet fully comprehend quite the gearing effect that things like the 1% cap on benefits and tax credits will have on those family finances. Essentially, the poorest people in Wales and across the UK are going to be expected to pay for the banking crisis, and April the 1st does mark that watershed moment when all the policies that have been talked about in terms of welfare reform actually become reality.
Because the UK government says that this is about a basic fairness, that people who are working and who aren't earning that much are being squeezed hard. Why not those who are on benefits? That it's a basic fairness argument.
How can they talk about fairness? How can the UK government talk about fairness while simultaneously with these welfare changes they offer a tax break to millionaires are worth hundreds of thousands of pounds? This isn't about fairness. This is about a government that longs for a world pre-1945, when the state had so little responsibility towards the most vulnerable, towards the disabled, towards those on low pay. This is about an ideology and about making sure that the poor pay the most.
So why is Ed Miliband finding it so difficult to say that he would scrap these measures? Why is he being so ambivalent?
We're a long way from a general election here, and we don't know what the state of the economy will be when the next election comes. It's entirely normal for an opposition party to take stock of the situation and to draw up its policies carefully.
Well, it's entirely normal for any leader to want to have his cake and eat it. Isn't that what's going on here?
Well, politics is about the art of the possible, and people see through claims that are impossible very quickly, and it's important that the Labour Party across the UK, the Labour Party in Wales, is very realistic in terms of what it needs to offer to people in terms of reassurance. Here at the Welsh Government, we're trying very hard to shelter people as best we can from the worst aspects of these reforms. Council tax benefit, for instance, is something that we're protecting here in Wales. I'll also be launching a series of proposals at community level to help look after people during these very difficult times. But this government, this UK government, will do harm. It will do harm to communities, to families and to individuals up and down Wales, and Wales most particularly in the UK, where a higher proportion of people rely on some form of social security, as we all might at some point during our lives.
So am I stating the obvious when I say that, of course, you would like to see Ed Miliband, if he were Prime Minister, scrapping things like the bedroom tax and some of these changes?
Absolutely, I would. I think the bedroom tax in particular is a particularly pernicious piece of reform, as we call it. It's not about fairness. It's not about redistributing social housing. We know that there aren't enough smaller properties to make that redistribution anything like a possibility. This is a straightforward cut in the living standards of people in social housing. And they tend to be, of course, the people on lower incomes. And there again, you see the pattern very clearly. Who will pay for the economic downturn? The poorest.
Is the argument once again that Wales will suffer disproportionately?
Well, that's also true. We all know that because of Wales's historic economic situation, there is a slightly higher proportion of people that rely on top-ups through tax credits, for instance. In some communities, that proportion is very high. And that's why, in particular, I'm concerned not just about the effect on individuals and families, but on whole communities in parts of Wales that I believe could be destabilised as a result of this. How many thousands of households does it take that might be forced to move out of their home because of something like the bedroom tax before we can describe a community as being destabilised? And we are talking about thousands of households here.
Do you have those sort of facts and figures? Have you looked ahead, given, as you put it, your need to shelter people? Have you tried to work out how many people, in your view, will be affected? How many people, in your view, will lose their homes? We
have, of course, tried to work this out. It's a little difficult to predict how human beings will react to the situation that they're in. We know, for instance, that nearly £600 million will be taken out of the pockets of the lowest paid and those that are unemployed from April the 1st. £600 million will disappear from their spending power. Some local authorities across Wales have broken down those figures to get a more accurate grasp of what's going on. But my feeling is that for a while people will try to manage. And one of my greatest fears is that people will do that by getting into debt. And we'll see something of a delayed reaction as people try to cope day to day, do everything they possibly can to meet the household bills, and that eventually, through getting into debt, the fallout will become even more catastrophic. And my advice to people that are facing difficulty would be: get good advice from your Citizens Advice Bureau or welfare advice officer at your local authority, and whatever you do, don't approach those high interest lenders like payday loan companies and so on if you do get into difficulty. Talk instead to your local credit union, because there you'll get proper money advice and a square deal.